This is
Michael Jackson, personal clothing. Just that famous jacket. There it is. Wow, that's amazing.
Michael Jackson did not build Neverland Ranch to impress the world or flaunt the fortune fame had given him. He built it to recover something far more precious, the childhood he felt had been stolen forever. Trains, wild animals, carnival rides, and Christmas celebrations that never seemed to end. Every inch of the property carried that longing. Beyond those legendary gates stood something darker than luxury or fantasy. It was Michael Jackson's private escape, exposing the heartbreaking truth buried inside one of history's most astonishing estates.
Ever built.
People wonder why I always have children around, because Disneyland, amusement parks, arcade.
Before Michael Jackson ever arrived, the mansion was already standing. The main residence had been completed in 1982 for the property's former owner. Designed in a French Normandy style, the enormous house covered approximately 13,000 square feet. When Michael bought the ranch in 1988, the mansion became his permanent sanctuary. Over the years, he transformed nearly every corner, filling its rooms with thousands of custom statues, Disney collectibles, built-in artwork, and mysterious hidden doors. Neverland Ranch did not begin with fame. It began with something Michael Jackson believed had vanished years earlier. As a child, Michael experienced a life almost unrecognizable from that of ordinary kids. While others played outside with friends and enjoyed carefree moments, he was rehearsing, recording songs, and performing before enormous crowds. Success arrived incredibly early, but childhood appeared to disappear alongside it. And as he grew older, that emptiness never truly left him. Even after becoming one of the most famous stars on Earth, Michael repeatedly spoke about longing for the simple experiences most children barely notice. Trophies and global fame could never return those missing years. But one story remained deeply connected to him.
Peter Pan.
The story of a boy who never needed to grow older reflected something Michael understood personally. It symbolized freedom, innocence, and a childhood capable of continuing forever. Eventually, Michael began imagining a place shaped by those same ideas, a world filled with wonder rather than pressure. That vision would ultimately become Neverland Ranch, the childhood kingdom he wished had been waiting for him years earlier. But before continuing, look carefully at this astonishing image. It seems to show a man resembling Michael Jackson, sitting calmly inside what appears to be a secret luxurious chamber overflowing with gold bars and enormous piles of $100 bills. Wearing an elaborate blue jacket beneath the glittering light of a crystal chandelier, the unidentified figure looks strangely relaxed despite the unbelievable fortune surrounding him. Unsurprisingly, the photograph has triggered countless theories involving hidden vaults and secret riches. Yet we were unable to confirm whether the image or the strange story surrounding it is authentic. What do you believe? Tell us in the comments. The main mansion. Every powerful kingdom needs a throne room, yet a throne room alone never creates a legend. The true soul of Neverland Ranch was the mansion positioned at the center of the vast estate. Long before artwork and elaborate concealed passageways appeared, the house contained 6 bedrooms and several living spaces stretched throughout its enormous interior. Every room carried a quiet sense of magnificence that photographs could never completely reveal. For a man who had spent almost his entire existence performing beneath the eyes of the world, those walls finally gave Michael something celebrity never had. Somewhere that belonged completely, undeniably, to him. The Park of Dreams. Many people imagine their dreams. Almost nobody constructs an entire universe inside them. Neverland stopped resembling an ordinary residence the instant its amusement park appeared beyond the hills. Hidden across the sweeping landscape stood something almost no private individual had ever possessed, a fully operational amusement park built directly on personal land. Michael Jackson was never going to accept an ordinary playground. Instead, he packed the estate with attractions that appeared to have been torn from a massive theme park and mysteriously placed within the California countryside. A brightly colored Ferris wheel rose above the horizon. Close by waited a carousel, bumper cars, and multiple carnival-style attractions that turned the ranch into a landscape that never seemed to stop moving. With every corner came another surprise, something impossible, something unexpected, something that simply should not have existed behind the gates of a private home. And then came the theater. This was nothing like a normal screening room. Neverland's private cinema had been created to deliver a complete theatrical experience. Guests could watch movies away from the outside world while still experiencing the atmosphere of a full commercial theater. Together, these wonders revealed one undeniable fact. No one had ever imagined a world quite like this. The Neverland Express. Certain places seem as though reality should never have allowed them to exist. Neverland was exactly that. The whistle drifted across the estate long before guests ever glimpsed the train. Cutting through the hills of Neverland was one of the ranch's most unforgettable creations. A narrow-gauge railway designed to transport visitors around the enormous property. This was no ordinary backyard attraction. Michael Jackson invested in a complete working railroad that eventually became one of the defining symbols of Neverland Ranch. At its heart stood a specially built diesel-powered locomotive designed to resemble the historic steam engine called the C.P. Huntington. Created by Chance Rides, the train followed tracks stretching across the estate, moving past lakes, gardens, and some of Neverland's strangest wonders. Yet the greatest surprise waited at the station. Called Neverland Valley Station, the structure seemed transported directly from an old American railway town. Featuring a clock tower and intricate Victorian-style architecture, it became the spectacular entrance to the entire railroad adventure. The train offered far more than transportation. It proved Michael Jackson imagined possibilities nobody else did. The private zoo. Most people collect awards. Michael Jackson collected entire worlds. Neverland's next shock did not emerge from a cinema screen. It came roaring from beyond actual fences. Spread throughout the property was a private zoo unlike anything normally seen inside a celebrity estate. While most wealthy homeowners settled for horses or rare pets, Michael Jackson populated areas of Neverland with an extraordinary collection of creatures from across the globe. Guests might see giraffes rising above treetops, elephants wandering through custom-built enclosures, and exotic birds flashing brilliant colors throughout the grounds. Llamas, zebras, and other unexpected animals also transformed parts of the estate into something resembling a wildlife sanctuary rather than someone's home. But one creature became more famous than all the others. Michael owned a chimpanzee named Bubbles, who became one of the most recognizable animals connected to his public identity. Although Bubbles did not live his entire life at Neverland, the chimp symbolized Michael's unusual bond with animals. The zoo did more than provide another spectacle. It raised another unsettling question. Just how far could this world possibly go? The endless playroom. The farther visitors traveled into Neverland, the more impossible it became to recognize where reality stopped and fantasy started. Among the estate's most breathtaking features stood its enormous arcade. Covering approximately 14,000 square feet, the structure exploded with flashing lights, electronic noises, and endless rows of machines disappearing into the distance. Classic pinball games stood alongside video cabinets, while motion simulators pushed the experience even further. It resembled less a room than an entire private entertainment complex concealed beyond locked gates. Created for someone determined never to let wonder disappear. Across the estate, childhood returned in countless forms. Life-sized superhero statues watched from hallways. Carousel horses appeared as decorations. Disney treasures and fantasy-inspired memorabilia occupied different corners of the property, leaving guests with the strange sensation that they had entered a universe constructed entirely from memory and imagination. There was no blueprint for something like Neverland. There were no rules controlling its creation. Each newly discovered secret only made the mystery grow deeper, while the outside world was only beginning to notice. The secret vault. Not every legend remains visible. Sometimes the world's greatest treasures survive exactly where nobody thinks of searching. Far beyond the famous gates and relentless public curiosity, another extraordinary collection remained silently protected behind secured doors. This remarkable treasure was preserved inside an enormous, heavily protected off-site professional archive facility in Los Angeles. From the street, The structure appeared completely ordinary. Nothing on its exterior suggested the priceless collection secretly protected behind those walls. Yet inside, it guarded some of the most important pieces from Michael Jackson's life and career. Thousands of objects spanning decades of music history remained preserved there. Stage outfits, concert props, private possessions, trophies, photographs, and incredibly rare memorabilia were carefully maintained under controlled conditions. Among these treasures were artifacts connected to the legendary Thriller era and everything that followed. The archive also held childhood sketches, presents from world leaders, paintings, and intimate belongings that documented his transformation from young performer to worldwide icon. Each object captured another chapter from a life spent beneath relentless public scrutiny. Much of the collection remains unseen, and sometimes what stays concealed reveals more than everything the public already understands. The hidden garage. One of Neverland Ranch's least familiar areas was its remarkable collection of vehicles. Behind service buildings across the estate, investigators encountered a huge assortment of transportation during the 2003 search. The collection went far beyond ordinary luxury automobiles and featured numerous customized and bizarre creations. One of the most unforgettable was a Peter Pan-themed fire engine. The garage also contained a 1955 Cadillac Fleetwood previously featured in the movie Driving Miss Daisy. Investigators recorded other specialty automobiles, motorcycles, and horse-drawn carriages discovered throughout the grounds. One modified limousine drew special interest because of its extravagant interior. According to search documents and photographs, the car included ornamental detailing, velvet seating, and handcrafted woodwork. Authorities thoroughly examined the garage complex, searching vehicles, compartments, storage sections, and surrounding structures during the wider investigation. Countless photographs and detailed inventory reports were produced. The collection exposed the astonishing range of vehicles stored at Neverland Ranch, from movie artifacts and themed creations to personalized transportation. Together, they uncovered yet another surprising layer of an estate already known for its unbelievable imagination and design. Oprah enters Neverland. Some moments in television history make the entire planet suddenly stop. February 1993 became one of those moments. The gates swung open, and for the first time, millions entered Michael Jackson's secret kingdom. Television host Oprah Winfrey came to Neverland Ranch for what would become one of television history's most watched celebrity interviews. An estimated 90 million people watched worldwide, transforming the broadcast into an enormous global event. Before they sat down together, Michael led Oprah through areas of Neverland almost no outsiders had previously witnessed. Cameras followed while he exposed different parts of the property, each revealing another piece of the strange vision behind Neverland. For countless viewers, this became their first genuine glimpse inside an estate already surrounded by endless fascination. Sitting together, Michael spoke candidly about his childhood, celebrity, and the relentless public attention that shadowed his entire career. He also confronted rumors surrounding his appearance and private life, subjects that had dominated headlines for years. The interview finally pulled back the curtain. But rather than ending the world's obsession, it made Neverland even more unforgettable. The water battle. Almost no sound traveled across Neverland quite like laughter. And during certain afternoons, that sound became absolutely thunderous. Disorder at Neverland did not always begin with scandal. Sometimes it started with something much more innocent. Across the ranch, Michael Jackson regularly transformed ordinary afternoons into enormous playful adventures for visiting children. One of the most unforgettable events became a gigantic water balloon battle spreading across the estate grounds. Buckets were loaded, balloons were readied. Neverland's wide field suddenly transformed into a temporary war zone filled with laughter and motion. Children raced across the grass as water balloons exploded through the air from every possible direction. No one escaped, and nobody wanted to. Michael never watched from the sidelines. He jumped in. He raced through the madness, avoiding splashes and launching balloons directly back toward the crowd. For a brief moment, the global superstar disappeared, replaced by someone resembling a child finally allowed to play. Witnesses remembered the scene as noisy, frantic, and completely uncontrolled. The serious world beyond the gates suddenly seemed impossibly distant. Inside Neverland, happiness never required an explanation. It simply needed enough space to run. If you've stayed this far, please press the like button. It genuinely supports the channel. The documentary storm. Not every doorway inside Neverland opened towards something magical. Some opened directly into disaster. Cameras began recording, and Neverland's fiercely protected universe suddenly welcomed another outsider. Between 2002 and January 2003, British journalist Martin Bashir spent months filming Michael Jackson for the documentary Living with Michael Jackson. Unlike previous interviews, the production offered extraordinary access to the singer's personal world, including extended time within Neverland Ranch. Cameras followed Michael across different areas of the estate while he discussed his childhood, celebrity, and private difficulties. Audiences witnessed rides, animals, and sections of the property that had almost never been revealed with such detail. For millions watching from their homes, it seemed like they were finally walking through those gates themselves. Then the entire story shifted. What appeared on television in 2003 was no longer merely a documentary. Specific moments captured within that footage triggered an argument that exploded across newspapers, television networks, and family conversations around the planet. Two opposing camps emerged instantly, and neither side intended to surrender. What started as an extraordinary journey behind Neverland's gates had suddenly ignited a blaze that no one could contain. Christmas at Neverland. Magic sometimes chooses the most unexpected places to survive. At Neverland, it returned every December, without exception. Snow seemed to fall across California, even when winter never truly came. Each December, Neverland Ranch transformed into an entirely different universe. Its gates opened onto a landscape buried beneath lights, ornaments, and enormous seasonal displays that turned the property into a secret Christmas village. Trees appeared throughout the estate, everyone covered with decorations and glowing lights stretching far into the darkness. The main mansion became the heart of everything. Indoors, rooms overflowed with Christmas decorations, music, and meticulously designed displays. Outside, pathways glowed while the amusement park continued operating, creating an almost unreal atmosphere. Visiting children encountered a version of Christmas constructed completely around spectacle and enormous scale. Attractions moved beneath sparkling decorations. Even the private zoo carried the spirit of the season, mixing holiday magic with Neverland's permanent wonders. Michael walked among the visitors, becoming part of the atmosphere that transformed the estate. But eventually, every decoration was removed. And once it vanished, the questions were always still there. The award moment. Award ceremonies are supposed to happen inside magnificent halls beneath blinding spotlights. Apparently, nobody explained that rule to Neverland. Without warning, one private estate became an international stage. On April 14, 1989, Neverland Ranch found itself at the heart of a worldwide broadcast connected to the first World Music Awards ceremony staged in Monte Carlo, Monaco. Organized under the patronage of Prince Albert II of Monaco, the event celebrated performers using international sales figures supplied by the IFBI. That evening, Michael Jackson accepted two significant awards. One honored his accomplishments in music videos, while the second celebrated the worldwide impact of his short film Dirty Diana. But instead of appearing on an ordinary stage, the presentation was recorded at Neverland itself. Singer Whitney Houston arrived at the ranch to present the awards. The ceremony was filmed on location and broadcast internationally, connecting Neverland directly to the televised event. A private estate had become the backdrop for a global music recognition moment, bringing the ranch into living rooms around the world. Neverland was no longer just a home. It was becoming something the world could not stop watching. Inside the marriage years, behind every great story, lives a quieter one that the cameras never fully captured. Neverland was pulled into the center of Michael Jackson's personal life in the mid-1990s. In 1994, Michael Jackson married Lisa Marie Presley. During their marriage, she spent time at Neverland Ranch, where Michael lived and worked at different periods, and where parts of their relationship unfolded away from public events. The ranch functioned as his primary residence during that era, its vast and private grounds forming the environment they shared. Lisa Marie Presley later spoke publicly about their relationship in interviews. She described it as emotionally intense and complicated, shaped by both closeness and personal challenges. Her reflections became part of the public record of their marriage. Their relationship quickly became a global media focus. Every appearance and statement was analyzed, turning their private life into a constant public discussion. Inside Neverland, however, the reality was simpler. A private space, a life being lived. Two people navigating something the world would never fully understand. But outside the gates, the world had already made up its mind. The friendship rides. Childhood has a funny way of finding people who never got to finish it the first time around. Neverland was not always about spectacle or controversy. Sometimes it was just laughter echoing across the hills. Among Michael Jackson's closest friends during the early 1990s was Macaulay Culkin, who often visited Neverland Ranch as a guest, spending time away from the pressure of fame and constant public attention. Inside the gates, the rules of the outside world faded. The amusement park and wide-open grounds became a private playground where moments of childhood like freedom could exist, even for two of the most recognized faces in the world. Culkin was often seen enjoying the rides at Neverland. The carousel spun under bright lights. The bumper cars collided in noisy chaos. Michael joined in many of these moments. No stage, no audience, just shared time inside a space designed for escape rather than performance. Those visits showed a different side of Neverland entirely. However, outside those gates, every moment inside was already being watched, and the world rarely saw what it actually was. The Neverland Raid. The gates of Neverland had opened for cameras, celebrities, and children. On November 18, 2003, they opened for something else entirely. One morning was enough to change the entire story of Neverland. While Michael Jackson was in Las Vegas, investigators entered Neverland Ranch with a large coordinated operation. The estate was searched as part of an official criminal investigation. Dozens of law enforcement personnel moved across the property to execute search warrants. Different areas of the ranch were examined, buildings were checked, and various items were collected for review. Investigators seized computers, documents, and personal belongings for further analysis. Locked areas were opened so that authorized search teams could inspect spaces not immediately accessible during initial entry. The operation continued for several hours and covered multiple structures across the estate. Following forensic review of the collected materials, no criminal evidence was reported from the electronic devices and items examined. The search became part of a much larger legal case, drawing widespread global attention. What had once been the world's most magical private estate had just become the world's most closely watched crime scene. Birthdays beyond imagination. Cake and candles were never going to be enough for Michael Jackson. When it came to celebrating his children's birthdays at Neverland Ranch, Michael did not think small. He could not. The property itself refused to allow anything ordinary within its gates. The entire estate transformed for these occasions. Rides that were already permanent fixtures on the property suddenly felt brand new, lit up, and running exclusively for the celebration. The grounds buzzed with energy that even regular visits to Neverland could not match. Michael was present for every moment, not as a global superstar, managing an event from a distance, but as a father fully inside the chaos. The laughter and the noise that only a child's birthday can create. Paris, Prince, and Blanket grew up in a place that most children only ever dreamed about visiting once. And on their birthdays, even that place pushed itself further than usual. No venue needed to be booked. No theme park needed to be rented out. They already lived inside one. And their father made absolutely sure they never forgot it. Neverland was more than a ranch. It was a dream built on lost childhood, endless imagination, and a desire to escape a world that never stopped watching. Behind its gates stood trains, animals, rides, friendships, celebrations, and controversy. Even today, the property remains one of the most fascinating symbols of Michael Jackson's life, leaving behind a story that still refuses to fade.